Now let's understand about variables in Python. So to declare a variable, you could pick up any name. Let's say I take a variable named A and let's assign a value to it. Maybe I could give it as 10. And to check whether this variable has the data or not, I could use the print statement. So print of A, and essentially it should print 10. So I'll save this program and then I'll just run it. And the output says 10 is available. Great. And coming to the naming convention, you're free to choose any variable name. So you could say sample or you could say apple. It's your choice. But there are few conditions. You can start a variable name either with an underscore or with a character, not with a number. Second, you cannot use the predefined keywords like print, in, or. Also, if I define a variable apple like this, and if I define apple is equals to 20, these two are different because in Python it is case sensitive. And as a convention, people generally use lowercase for the variable. So we'll just skip this. So let me take it back. Let's define a as 10. Now, if you want to change the value, so you could overwrite it. Maybe I could say a is equals to apple. And if I print a for the second time, let me run this. Now you see that there are two things which are being printed in the terminal. The first thing is this particular a and this print statement, and the second time apple because you have overwritten the a with apple. After this, and most frequently we might use the strings, and concatenation plays a very critical role. So let me show you one demo of how do we concatenate two strings or two elements. So for this, let's say I print I am a string, and concatenation operator is plus. So if I try to join an integer with a string, if you execute this, you would see that there is a error. The error is because we cannot concatenate a string with an integer. So what we usually do is we typecast the integer. So I'll change the integer to string using a typecasting operator str. Let me save and let's run it. Now this time you can see that I'm a string and 123 is being printed. Perfect. So as you can see, sometimes you need to identify what type of variable is it, because in other programming languages there's an explicit data type given. Maybe like in C programming, you would type it as int a is equal to 10, where a is definitely integer. But here we don't know. Sometimes a could be an integer, or it could be a string, or it could be anything else, because it's dynamically taken. Now to understand what type of data type it is, we use a function called type. So for this reason, let's say I have a variable a. Let me take it as 10 again. Now if I print a and comma, let me use the function type of a. Okay, let me save and let me execute, and you would see that I'm able to get the output as 10, and you see a class int. So this is integer format. Now what is this class? In Python, each and everything is stored in the format of an object. Okay, so we'll discuss these objects later on, but understand that there is a concept of class and objects, and all variables, functions, lists, everything is an object. Okay, and this particular variable a is of type integer object, so it's an integer. Now let me change the value. Let's say I give a as 5.5. Save this and run it. This time you see it's a floating point. Let's give it as apple. Save and run, and as we guess it, it's a string type. So these are the frequently used thing. Either you use integer, float, or a string. Sometimes you might want to store some boolean data. a true or a false. So let's say I give true. Here true is T is capital. Okay. So save this and run it, and you see that the type of variable is boolean. In Python, there is one more exclusive type which is not there in other programming languages. It's called none. None is more like your null variable. Okay, no data. So run this. You get it as none type. There's a new data type called none, having no value. Great. And other than this basic data types or basic variables, we also use few sequence types. So we will discuss this in detail in the upcoming classes, but for now, let's say I have value of 234 in a square brackets, and let me copy this and paste it over here, save and run it. You see that this is of format list. List can be thought as an array, okay, a collection of elements. On a very similar lines, we have one more type. A is, you have the circular brackets. Let's say I give 3 4 5. Let me copy this, paste it over here. Now if I run it, now you see there is something called tuple. So tuple is immutable. That means you cannot change the data of this particular sequence type. So that's the second format. We have one more format. This is called a set. So if I give 2 3 4 and print a comma type of A, save and run. Now you see that this is a format set. So in the set, the order of the elements is not important. So it's only a collection of certain elements. And the last thing which we use frequently is a dictionary. It looks something like this: 1, and I would say Ramesh, then comma 2, I give it as Suresh. Now if I print this A, and if you try to understand the type of A, save and run it, this is called DICT, which is basically a dictionary. You can think of this as an associative array, something like you have a key and a value. Again, this is also very frequently used. So we either use a list where you just have the values, or if you have a key and a value, then you go for a dictionary. Great. This much of understanding is enough. Now move on to the website and solve the practice questions. These are handpicked questions from the interview question bank.